one of our political individuals said, I never had a sexual relationship with that woman.
Yes.
That was true. You know, a lot of times you'll ask people questions, they'll give you a referral statement. You ask somebody a question, did you steal that watch? No, I didn't steal that watch. That's a reliable denial. It's about 90% accurate. If they say, I'm not the kind of person that would steal a watch, if they never answer the question, fail to answer the question, a lot of times you need to go back and start talking about that. I was reading something the other day about years ago, Amy Fisher and Joey Buttafuoco, he ends up going to court, and a reporter asked him as he was going to court, are you cheating on your wife? And he said, no, I'm not cheating on my wife. That was true. He wasn't cheating on his wife at the time he went to court, but he did it. So, they're like, well, he lied. No, you asked a bad question. I was reading something the other day about that, and they were talking about the questions that reporters ask, and I was like, that's, some of these guys ask these. I'm like, y'all need to hire Eddie to teach you how to ask questions. One of our political individuals said, I never had a sexual relationship with that woman.
Yes.
That was true. He never did, because that action that he had with her wasn't a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so when he was asked that question, the question that they wanted to ask him was, have you ever had sexual contact with this woman in the Oval Office?
Yeah.
But they weren't allowed to ask that. So they said, have you ever had a sexual relationship with this woman? And he said, no. And he was telling the truth. So my question would have been, have you ever had any type of sexual contact with this woman in the Oval Office? And he'd have had to say, if he'd have said no, he'd have been lying. So a lot of it just depends on how you ask that question. And I've asked very bad questions before. Like if you ask somebody, do you own a blue Ford F-150 pickup truck? And they say no. What are they saying no to? So so when I sit down and like I said, I'll ask a question and they say no, this is my next question. I try to be as specific as I can. That way there's no wiggle room. Because if there's wiggle room, they'll use it on, no, you asked me this and I said no, and that's the truth. And now you're telling me I'm lying.
Yeah.
You're like, well, okay. Guess I asked a bad question. Yeah. I asked a bad question. Yeah. But now that we're past that, let me ask you this. And I'll just go right back into what I want to ask them.